Okay, welcome. Apparently we have 4 public speakers. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Teresa Conrad. I'm an X18 Express bus rider. The X18 Express bus service, which is vitally important to the east north shores of Staten Island, is scheduled for elimination and needs to be restored. I am here to present a petition containing signatures asking for the reinstatement of our bus. The elimination of the X18 Express bus route set to kick in on June 27th will mean that daily riders will have to take a local bus to either another express bus route or to the ferry, and will mean a longer, more crowded commute to Manhattan. Taking a local bus to the ferry or to another express bus would also be at a time when many students are going to school and the local buses will be overcrowded. Many of us are not located near the Staten Island Railroad, so taking the train to the ferry is not an option for us. There are no other express buses that travel on Vanderbilt Avenue, Tompkins Avenue, and Bay Street that we would be able to take. The towns that presently use the X18 Express bus that would be adversely affected by having no express bus service are Concord, Park Hill, Clifton, Rosebank, Fort Wadsworth, and Shore Acres. We ask that the decision for the total elimination of the X18 Express bus service be reconsidered. There are other express bus lines that buses can be taken from without decrease in service. In addition, I would like to state that because of the elimination of this bus, our property values will also be affected. This bus allows an easy commute to Manhattan, making it a strong selling point for our property. We are simply asking for service. That is the reason this petition has been signed. We're not asking for sheltered bus stops, fancy signs, or additional unneeded train stations. We are asking for a safe commute to work. We are asking for service. Thank you. I also have the petition I'd like to present to whomever would take it. Thank you.
And the next speaker is Sarah Meyerson.
Good morning. I'm here today to plead to have the number 5 bus not rerouted from where its usual stop is in Soho. By doing this, it causes incredible helplessness and confusion to all the people who use that bus, and there are hundreds and hundreds of us. We have a petition here of about 400 or 500 people that have signed it who use that bus constantly. People who are handicapped, walkers, people who can't walk 1 or 2 blocks will not be able to get a bus to leave their homes and go to a doctor or do whatever they have to do in New York City. Now, most of you here are young, but, in a couple of years, you too will be faced with the same idea that the transportation in that area will be lost to you. We have tried as best we can to try to keep this bus route from not going away, and there must be some other arrangements that you can make to allow at least 1 or 2 buses, maybe an hour, that will stop at the LaGuardia place. So all those hundreds of people that live in that area will be able to get a bus to take them uptown to their doctors, to their schools. There are school children at PS 41 that will not be able to get a bus to go to school in the morning, and it is a bus that's used a great deal. I mean, New York City has always given the pedestrian or the person who's using buses the ability to use them. That's why our buses, every 2 blocks, there's a bus. But now that's going to go away. And we are being left without the kind of transportation we need in this city to do what we have to do. I have the petition here of the 400 people, 300 or 400 people, and I'd like to leave them with you. Thank you.
The next speaker is Helene Sisserman.
Good morning. I'm afraid I'm going to be a little repetitious like Sarah because I also am appealing for the 505 bus, which you intend to reroute, leaving many of us its users who are handicapped to walk the 4 or more blocks depending on their starting point to 6th Avenue. We also do not know at this time where along Broadway the stops will be for us. In terms of finances, we all know about economic situations, but right now we cannot think in terms of finances only. We have to appeal for your being compassionate and think of what you will be doing to the seniors and the handicapped population when you change the route of the number 5 bus. I'm so nervous, I apologize. A most important reason for you to reconsider and not change the route of the number 5 bus is the danger it poses to the seniors who use canes, walkers, wheelchairs, and those who are visually impaired or blind who will have to cross over a 2-way street at LaGuardia Place to get to the 6th Avenue. And in the snowy weather and when the streets have not been cleaned, it is unsafe for the handicapped population. Mainly, you will be drastically reducing our independence for traveling about the city. You are crippling us more than we are. Please do not think of the number 5 bus as having a circuitous route only. It serves as a multiple transfer point going east and west at all of the crosstown streets from uptown as well as to the Lower East Side, and most importantly, for all the hospitals. Please think with your hearts and try to reach some sort of compromise where the people who depend on the number 5 bus can be accommodated. As seniors, we have contributed much to the city, and at our age, we should be given due consideration in the scheme of things. I thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sisserman. The next speaker is Gittel Perkins.
Good morning. I, too, am here to speak for the 5 bus, but much has been said about it that I certainly agree with. But in reading the notice on the bus stop signs, I noticed that the 21 bus will be stopping, and it says that you can pick up the number 9 bus to get to 23rd Street. In my travels, I've noticed that the folks who go to Bellevue very often get off the 29. They're mostly handicapped, visually impaired, and people who need that bus route close to Bellevue Hospital. I don't know if I'm wrong in reading the signs or not, but at this point, if you don't have a bus going directly to Bellevue, I would implore you to please reconsider, because getting off at 23rd on the 9 bus, if I'm reading it correctly, is not going to help them. So please reconsider some form of transportation directly to Bellevue Hospital. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our public speakers.
I'd like a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Motion made.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
There are no changes to the work plan this month. And now Joe Smith will do his thing.
Good morning, Chairperson Travella, members of the committee. I'd like to turn it over to John Hine, who's the Vice President and Chief Transportation Officer and Labor Relations Officer, for his operations report. John?
Good morning. I'll present some performance highlights for the month of March. Overall combined MDBF in March was down slightly from March of 09, 1.9%. In Long Island Bus, however, was up 85.5% due to the amount of new equipment in Long Island Bus. The biggest factor in March was the rain that we had, almost 11 inches of rain compared to previous March. And the buses are severely taxed in the rain. All the electrical systems, or most of the electrical systems, and the air system, almost every bus we have, the windshield wipers are operated by air. The defrosters are working overtime, especially in rush hours, to try to keep the windshields clear. So we tend to have more issues in the rain than not, and that's what we attribute the slight reduction in March. The air condition was also in March. We had 3 days where it was 70 degrees. The previous March was 1, so we got a good test. One of the days was up in the 80s. We got a good test, and we were able to jump on some of the issues with air conditions, so we should be in better shape going forward. The combined 12-month average of MDBF through March 10 was down slightly from last year by 0.8%. The bus service performance was strong in March. Weekday AM pullouts were 99.33%, and combined weekday pullouts, PM pullouts were 99.64%. Combined AM weekday pullouts were 99.52, and PM weekday pullouts 99.72. Completed trips were 98.63 for the month of March, and 98.96 for the previous 12 months. Steve Vidal will now present the safety.
Good morning. Overall, the 12-month rate for combined bus collisions per million miles traveled improved by 3.4%. Similarly, the 12-month rate for bus collision injuries per million improved by 4.1%. The 12-month rate for customer accidents rose to 6.3% over the 12-month prior period, and the rate for customer accidents also increased by 2.3% over that same period. The 12-month rate for employee on-duty lost time accidents worsened by 24.2% from the 2009 level. As Commissioner Chevelle requested at our March meeting, I have prepared 2 brief presentations that will address the increase in customer accidents and the employee accident rates. Okay. At the April Bus Operations Committee meeting, we reported a 12-month 7.3% increase in customer accidents. As was reported today, that rate is down to 6.2%. During that 12-month period of time, that reflects a rise of 75 customer accidents, coupled with a decrease in ridership of 33%. When analyzing the customer accidents, we looked at the significant change in the profile of our fleet, and during that 12-month period, we added 861 low-floor buses to our fleet. More significantly, we introduced low-floor buses to 7 depots for the first time into their service area. So we were introducing a new piece of equipment for our customers to be dealing with. We then looked at our customer accidents comparing the low-floor buses versus our non-low-floor buses, and what we were able to identify is that our non-low-floor bus accidents were down. Now, that's not surprising to some extent because the mileage on the low-floor buses, the non-low-floor buses were down a little bit, but when standardized for distance, they were still down slightly. However, on the low-floor bus accidents, that's where the rate was actually up. Prior to this period of time, we've been dealing with customer accidents on our low-floor buses that were related to the acceleration profile, with the difference in the acceleration coming from an electronic motor as opposed to a traditional transmission. We had to deal with our vendor to develop a software that would replicate on the acceleration of our hybrid buses the same profile that our diesel buses would have. And that was finally implemented across all our fleet in the third quarter of last year. And what we found is that that acceleration reduction program actually reduced the number of customer accidents on board while the bus was moving. So that was a successful implementation. But it still doesn't explain why we have an increase in our customer accidents. What we did find was during this same period of time a very significant increase in customer accidents both boarding and alighting the buses while the bus was standing. when we look at the trend lines, as I noted earlier, there were 75 additional customer accidents. We can attribute 70 of that 75 to the period of time June through October of last year. And then we see that in November, the numbers level out, and then as of the beginning of this year, they actually start to drive down. So that's why you see a reduction from the 8.2 last month to 7.3 this month. Excuse me, 7. All right. Yes. Okay. So we're trending in the right direction, but we really need to deal with ensuring that we don't let this get out of hand. The challenge is to continue reducing the customer accidents over the next several months so that we come down below where we're at, and also to deal with the reduction in the ridership, which has couples on the rate that we have. So there's actually a three-step action plan. One is to deal with operator awareness. The other one is to deal with customer awareness. And then thirdly, where we go with the lessons that we learned. On the bus operator awareness, we've incorporated the trend information on the low-floor buses into our bus operator training. Every operator comes through training on an annual basis during their birth month, and during that refresher training, we're reviewing the trends, and this is a significant trend, so that the operators are becoming familiar and sensitive to the fact that they've got to make sure their customers know what's going on as they board and alight the bus. Also, whenever we introduce new equipment to a depot, we train the operators on the vehicles, and we're incorporating this particular trend into the training so the operators, as they take the bus out for the first time, are aware that their customers are being introduced to the bus for the first time as well, so that they can convey the message out. We've distributed safety alerts to bus operators with their paychecks. Actually, there's a series of them. One was a general boarding and alighting safety alert, which reminds them of the policy for curbing the bus and kneeling when you're not curbed. And then the second one is reminding them that your customers need to hold on as they board and alight the bus, regardless if it's a high floor or a low floor, because the risk is the same for both. So that was done. We also provided safety posters to be hung up in the depot swing rooms, which just basically tell, we have to make sure our customers are safe, and it highlights the fact that you've got high floor and low floor buses where it's just as important to hold onto the grab rail as you're getting on and off either one of those. We've also, dealing with customer awareness, we just finished producing 2 PSAs, public service announcements. Corporate Communications filmed them last week. We're expecting them to be available on the radio as well as on television ads, which highlight the need to hold on to the grab rails as you're boarding and alighting, regardless of the type of equipment that you're boarding and alighting. We've also incorporated bus command center announcements that address the need to be careful. Actually, there's 2 of them. One is, attention to all customers, the bus you ride tomorrow may be designed differently than the one you're riding today. For your added safety, please use extra caution and hold the grab bars while boarding and alighting the bus. Thank you. The other one is, attention all customers, for your added safety, please remember to use grab bars and watch your step while boarding and exiting the bus. So those have been put into a regular rotation at the command center for our customers to hear. We also dealt with Corporate Communications to develop car cards or bus talk cards, which highlight the need to concentrate on every step that you take as you're alighting the bus. These were actually delivered to the depots for distribution or installing on the buses last Friday, so that you should start seeing them this week. And they're being published in a variety of languages, Chinese and Russian and Korean as well. So those are all happening. Additionally, we do have technology on the buses where we can have canned messages as the doors are opening, and we're working with our maintenance department to have a please hold on as you exit the bus enunciated as the doors are open. So we're expecting that sometime within the next few weeks. The lessons learned that we have to really pay attention to is we're introducing a new low-floor bus to our articulated fleet, and we need to be out in front of the learning curve with the customers. We need to make sure that we're dealing with the customers and not waiting for for an experience of a rise in customer accidents boarding along the bus. So we're reinforcing all the issues with the bus operators during their training, and we're also making sure that the information is getting out to the to the customers as it's introduced to their lines. I'm going to now turn it over to my safety officer, Wayne Galante, who's going to do a presentation on lost time accidents.
Thanks, Steve. At April's meeting, we reported a 25% increase in lost time accidents, and most of that increase involved bus operators. In all, 5 accident categories made up nearly all of the accident increase, and in terms of severity, the majority of these are termed soft tissue accidents. 2 examples of those, for example, non-collision motor vehicle lost time accidents, like potholes, accounted for over 40% of all lost time NVAs. Another example, 1/3 of our lost time accident assaults involve a spat upon incident. While these employee accidents have an average number of 64 lost days per accident, that's for the assaults, we still do not see severity as the issue here. To manage accidents, we have location safety officers assigned to our depots. We work with them to improve safety performance and have the employees remain in the workplace. That said, the question is, why did we have this increase? Following the tragic death of Edwin Thomas in December of 2008, the first quarter of 2009 started with increased focus, really a fast track, on reporting assaults through the Department of Security's new security tracking system, SITS. At the same time, while that was happening, we were ramping up assault reporting through local depot management, and labor was delivering the same message. The combination of these efforts fast-tracked the inclination to basically over-report incidents and other safety issues that subsequently become a lost-time accident. During the course of the year, fortunately, the over-reporting began to normalize, and equally important, in July of 2009, we began cycling our bus operators through conflict avoidance training. This is training geared to mitigate assaults. Because of this and our ongoing work with the LSOs, lost time accident trends in the 3rd and 4th quarters began to show signs of improvement. What's the plan to fix it? Moving forward, we're looking at 3 areas. The first is to implement our successful IOD safety refresher training in all of our MTA bus operations in 2010. The second is to expand the central oversight of LSO performance and provide them additional trainings, the tools they need to get the job done. Finally, we're reviewing LTA performance and LSO management of accidents at our report card meetings. Those are meetings Joe hosts. This also includes their ability to manage the lost days, which is critical here, tied to the lost time accident. Thank you.
So unexpectedly, we introduced a bus without steps, and we wind up having more customer accidents. You would figure it would be the other way around, but we're working on making sure that all the handles are placed properly and everything else is correct. But we're actually learning, for some reason, when the bus is on the route, the longer it is, the customer accidents come down too. So we're not sure if people are just assuming they're stepping off the bus, they're not holding on. There's only one step. They figure they don't have to hold on, and unfortunately they're getting hurt in the meanwhile. So. But we're going to keep working on this.
Are those accidents across all of the bus agencies? Or?
Across all the bus, yes. It just seems that the low-floor bus, without those steps, you don't grab the handle. You just step off. And it's not the rear door. There's a small amount on the rear door, but very small. Most of them are front door.
Could you realign where the handle is? I don't know.
I think we're going to look at the grab rail, try to make them more friendly, and if that's the case. But people aren't going to grab on. Yeah.
With the non-low floors, they're all kneeling buses, I take it?
Yes.
What's the maintenance record with the kneeling mechanism?
The kneeling mechanism is a
pain in the neck. Yeah, okay.
It's a pain in the neck. But people generally, even when you kneel the bus, they grab the handle as they're getting off. We have people stationed throughout the city, and 90% of the people on a bus with steps hold on. On the other side, buses without steps, only 5% of the people are holding on. So that's where the accidents are happening. So.
Mark, you had a question? Comment?
Do you know anything about other places with low floor buses? Whether this is just a New York City problem, or is this
I don't see
other people are equally unable to hold on?
I did speak with some of my peers from Chicago Transit, and they did experience the same kind of spike. It seems like when it's introduced to a line, you see it go up and then it kind of comes down. We deal routinely with learning curves with our bus operators. We're very aware of them. We're always trying to mitigate or diminish how long that learning curve is. In this particular case, Chicago did. Unfortunately, I asked them after we experienced it rather than before. So that's another lesson learned.
So, I mean, it would seem obvious that you get rid of the steps with a low floor bus, or you have fewer steps. Does the bus kneel less, or are you still controlled by the distance from the bottom step to the pavement?
The bus still kneels, and it's virtually the height of the step knelt on or when it's in the normal position is virtually identical to a regular bus.
And what's the capacity in terms of passengers between a regular bus and a low floor bus?
It's 34 seats for a low floor, am I correct? 36 seats? 43 for a regular bus. And if you, capacity those standees, I don't know the standee number. Yeah. There's more people in a high floor bus. That's what it comes down to. You can fit more people in it.
Well, you know, maybe this all straightens out over time. And low-floor buses sound like a great idea, except they don't carry as many people, which is not really terrific. If more people are falling out of them as they climb in and out, I mean, it might be worth a moment's thought.
Yeah. It's not climbing in, it's climbing out.
Uh-huh.
It's exiting the bus.
I mean, maybe those steps aren't so bad. I mean, human conditioning, you see steps in front of you, you pay attention. You don't see the steps in front of you, you just launch yourself to the pavement.
That seems to be it. So maybe we got to do a better...
And you can carry more people.
Quite entertaining today, Mark. We have to keep you at the end of the row all the time.
Thank you. Tom?
Good morning. I report on paratransit. The Accessoride and Able Ride paratransit ridership showed an increase in ridership for the month of March. Accessoride was up 13.6%, and Able Ride was up 3.7% compared to March 2009 levels. For the 12-month period, paratransit ridership continues to increase over the prior 12-month period. Accessoride was up 14.9%, and Able Ride was up 2.4%. However, when compared to 2010 adopted budget levels, Accessoride ridership was lower than the budget by 5.1%, and Able Ride ridership was lower than 1.1% for the year to date through March. Paratransit farebox revenue for Accessoride was worse than the adopted budget by 3% for the month of March. It is 5.5% lower than budget for the year to date. Able Ride farebox revenue was 5.2% better than the adopted budget for the month of March. It is 2% better than budgeted levels for the year to date through March. Requests for service in March increased by 11.1% for Accessoride and 7.7% for Able Ride compared to March 2009. For the 12-month average, requests for service increased 15.3% for Accessoride and 3.7% for Able Ride. Trips completed were up by 13.3% for Accessoride and 8% for Able Ride in March 2010 compared to 2009. For the last 12 months, completed trips were up 14.4% for Accessoride and 3.8% for Able Ride when compared to the prior 12-month period. The favorable trend regarding passenger no-shows as a percentage of scheduled trips continued for Accessoride in March, as there were 27.6% fewer no-shows compared to last year. Able Ride passenger no-shows also decreased by 3.1% in March 2010 compared to March 2009. And that concludes the paratransit report.
Could I ask, there's been a number of, ridership obviously keeps going up, costs are skyrocketing for paratransit. There's been a number of conversations, whether they've been redoing the contracts, There's been some, obviously, talk about yellow taxis, which we've been talking about. There's been some discussion, I guess early on, I don't know if that's for this year or for next year, about eliminating direct stop-to-stop. Is there some way I don't know, the committee calendar, that maybe in the very near future we can get sort of an update of everything that's going on in the paratransit world, whether it's vendor negotiations, stop-to-stop, yellow taxis, so we can identify where the hookups and the problems are? Obviously, I prefer it sooner than later, but I asked the chair if we can find time in the work plan to get a presentation on that. Sure. Thank you.
In looking at that, are we considering the benefit of low floors in terms of handicapped access and how that relates to
Yes, and the feeder and trip-by-trip, the fixed route bus, yes, integration of those fixed bus routes.
Okay, good morning. Ridership. Fixed route bus ridership levels continue to trend down in March, below adopted budget levels because of the economic downturn and weather-related issues. Total fixed route ridership decreased by 2.3% for the month of March as compared to March 2009. For the 12-month period, total ridership was down 3.7%. Year-to-date, in terms of adopted budget levels, MTA bus is 0.6% below budget. Long Island bus is right on, and Transit's Department of Buses is 2.8% lower than budget. Combined average weekday ridership was down 2.8 for the month of March and down 3.8 for the 12-month period. Weekend ridership in March was down 6.9, particularly due to that heavy weekend of March 13th and 14th, where there was a tremendous amount of rain, and down 4% for the 12-month period. But on a positive note, the preliminary numbers for April show all three agencies had increases of from 1 to 3% in terms of ridership, partially due to the way the school spring recess fell, where it was partially in March and partially in April, and last year was fully in April. On to the finance report. Preliminary financial results show that fixed route fare box revenue for March was 8.7% better than the adopted budget for MTA bus, 2.9% better for transit, and 2.4% better for Long Island bus. Now, year-to-date, MTA bus is 3.2% better than the adopted budget for fare box revenue. Long Island bus is up 0.2%, and the Department of Buses is 0.5% below budget. On the actual non-reimbursable expense side, before non-cash adjustments, all three agencies are doing quite well relative to the adopted budget. MTA bus is $15.8 million better than the adopted budget level. Long Island bus is $2.6 million better than the adopted budget, and New York City Transit bus is $21.4 million better than the budget year-to-date. So in total through March, the combined budget underrun for the three bus units, including their paratransit operations, is $40 million, or 5.6 below the adopted budget, as we continue to address the operating deficit from our end. Now, some of the underrun is timing related, but a significant portion of it is the result of lower spending and vacancy savings that we've been building up in compliance with the current expense initiatives and in anticipation of additional budget reductions, which will be heard from in the coming months. That concludes the finance report. I'll do procurement. The procurement agenda this month includes two non-competitive actions in the book totaling $19.45 million in expenditures. We request your approval for the two non-competitive procurement actions.
While you're looking for that, can I ask this question? It's very hard for us to know which side to cheer for when you're making your report. Do we want more riders or do we want less riders? If we have more riders, we're obviously providing more service, but since we lose 60 cents on every dollar that you take in, maybe we should, except for paratransit when we lose the whole store, do we want more or less?
We always want more, but it comes at a cost.
Oh.
What? What's driving down the express bus ridership numbers? They're up like 10%. That's pretty high.
No.
Is that the increase in the fare, or is that just the employment?
It's a combination of things. It's the fare, it's the employment, it's the continuing traffic congestion that we deal with on the express bus side, which frankly has not been abated, and it makes express buses more difficult to be competitive with the automobile or other forms of public transit, frankly.
I would add, though, that express bus ridership was trending down before the last fare increase, too. It's mostly economics. I mean, once the recession and job losses started hitting, we started seeing it well before the June 2009 fare increase. It's accelerated after that, but it certainly was a factor beforehand.
That's a significant number. That's the largest we've seen.
Procurements?
This looks like the best way to manage, to figure out New York City's economy, just to look at the decline of the increase in express fare, express bus rides.
It's definitely a real proxy.
But there is also,
yes,
at least on transit side, there is also a shift. It's much more sensitive to fare changes, and the relative difference between the express bus fare versus the local fare. Almost all of our express riders have some alternative means, transit means, as well as other means. So there's a back and forth that we see whenever the fare increases.
Over the last year, we have been parking buses, MTA bus, express buses, in depots in the city. So instead of the buses come from Queens or come from Brooklyn or come from the Bronx, they would come into the city full, go back empty, come back to the city at the end of in the PM side, come back empty, then go back full. Now what we do is we lay the buses over in transit depots during the day. So it saves us a great amount of money in non-revenue mileage and fuel and maintenance costs. It's been a great win for us. So that's how we've saved a lot of money by doing that.
Joe?
What do you do with a bus driver?
We manage to get the driver back to his home depot, or if he wants, depending on the location, he can swing in that depot.
So you have that flexibility? With
Yes.
Sorry. Okay, questions? If not, let's take a
No.
vote on the two procurements.
Motion. Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, now Norm?
Norm?
Good morning. We have 3 service adjustments to report as information items for the committee. 1 adjustment is for MTA Bus and 2 for New York City Transit. The first for MTA Bus is a relabeling of the, talking about express buses, the QM1, QM1A Union Turnpike corridor route, and the QM24 route from the Glendale area. The second change is at New York City Transit, an implementation of limited stop service on the B82. And the third change is an implementation of limited stop service 7 days a week on the Q58. Details of these service changes were contained in the staff summary submitted to the committee. We are prepared to answer any questions that you may have on the 3 of these items.
I'm glad that you redid the MTA buses, because I get more complaints and inquiries about Glen Oaks and North Shore Towers than I get about any other thing in the bus system. And I think this is a big step forward, and it's of course, most of those come from Senator Padovan, who probably bothers you also. But I noticed that there's a little zig into Nassau County in both of those. Did Queens Surface and Triborough have that little zig into Nassau? What are you going to Nassau County for?
We really don't go into Nassau County. The route runs along a street called, to get to North Shore Towers, the one route you're talking about, goes along a street called Lakeville Road, which is right on the border. And literally half the street, as Mitch is shaking his head, half the street's in Nassau. It really doesn't run in Nassau. It's right in front of Long Island Jewish Hospital, for those of you who know where it is. So we really don't run into Nassau.
We zag.
Right, Long Island Jewish is, and North Shore is actually in Long Island.
Yeah, there's a portion of the road that is and isn't.
Okay, Peter Caffiaro is going to do a brief presentation.
Hello. You get the lights. We're presenting to the bus committee and then later on to transit committee an update on where we are with informing the public on the service changes that are coming up affecting all 3 bus agencies, New York City Transit, MTA Bus, and Long Island Bus, at the end of June. And on my left is Margaret Coffey from New York City Transit's Corporate Communications, so we're going to do a bit of a joint presentation on this. As you all know, we have a significant number of service changes that were part of the budget reduction process. Going forward, it affects 21 local and 12 express routes on New York City Transit that are being discontinued, some more on weekends, and up to 39 local routes that will have span changes and a number of significant reroutes of changes of bus routes to other streets from what they currently operate on. At MTA Bus, discontinuing service on 1 local and 4 express routes, as well as some changes to other express routes. Long Island Bus, 11 routes discontinued, and changes to 7 others. I included here the subway changes were the most noticeable, or the elimination of 2 letters, the V and the W. That does affect the bus side because bus information and timetables or on the street corners do reference the subway system. So that affects it. And on the subway side, in the subway stations, we do point to connecting bus routes. So the bus changes do affect our subway information. Next. Yes?
On the last slide, on the bullets under New York City Transit buses, there's sort of one category that's not listed there, which is discontinue segments of existing routes.
Right. I mean, this is just a summary of what we're doing, and there are many changes, basically. We have a number of bus stops, and the number of bus stops affected has been daunting to us as we've gone forward and done this. There are 500 New York City Transit stops, 500 or more stops on the transit side, almost 200 in Nassau on Long Island Bus, and over 35 on MTA Bus that are being discontinued. There are probably close to 9,000 stops system-wide that have some other change affected, whether it's the span or the route number or the information on the guide-a-ride map. Within New York City, we've been working with New York City Department of Transportation, which has jurisdiction over bus stops and actually controls the signage that you see on the picture on the right. The top of the lollipop sign that says what the route is and where it goes. They, in fact, do that installation. They started last Monday in Brooklyn making changes because clearly we can't do all this on one weekend, even though we'd want to be able to push a switch and do it. This is going to be multiple months that will start before and end after the service change to catch up with all that signage. So we have other means of informing our customers in this interim period that I'll talk about in a few minutes. They also, of course, do MTA Bus within the city, and in Long Island there's multiple parties involved in bus stops there. Next slide. What we wanted to do within the city, New York City Transit has these rectangular boxes on each bus stop called the guide-a-ride, which has the timetable and the strip map of the route. Again, we have close to 9,000 just in New York City Transit that need some kind of updating, and until that information is available to start going in as we get close to the June service change, we wanted to make sure that there were no changes on a bus stop without at least having some information as to what was going on. So we produced the yellow insert that you see on the right, that basically summarizes by borough, as well as a separate one for express buses, what service is changing within that borough, and that it's effective on June 27th. To further enforce the bus stops that were ultimately going to be discontinued, to reinforce that with customers, we also produced the peach insert you see on the left that says that after June 27th it's no longer a bus stop. We are aware that there will be many of these bus stops that will still be in place for several weeks or even months after June 27th, so we're coordinating with the city as to when they remove the signs, and that we come in just right before to get those guide-a-ride boxes and recycle those. There are guide-a-ride boxes on the express bus, correct, Norm, but not local?
That's correct. Not the local express, and not all the express yet. It's been an evolving process.
In New York City Transit traffic checking staff, basically, which is part of operations planning, maintains those and inserts those graphics.
Peter, has there been any tally made of the expense of all of these customer information changes to both bus and subway? Because they are very extensive.
Right. Well, maybe we'll summarize at the end. First of all, it's not a clean answer because most of these, for example, most of these stops we would have been revisiting anyway. We update the maps in them every year because they fade in sunlight and other changes happen. Same with the schedules, which change 3 or 4 times a year, and we have to revisit many of them. So we've put off those replacements, knowing that this whole situation was coming up. We've also been working to minimize overtime, obviously, given our financial situation, which is one of the reasons it's basically will take us close to 2 months to hit all of the bus stops in the city, which is why we had to start this process with the yellow and the peach May 1st, basically, to make sure they were all hit before June. Similarly, the bus maps and subway maps and other items are reprinted anyway. But I'm not saying there's no expense. And I don't know if we totally totaled up the numbers, but it's multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars for sure. Right. All the printing is done in-house, and Margaret will talk about that probably in our next slide. Right. So, Margaret, do you want to talk about how we rolled out on the buses?
Sometime in early June, we will be placing service notices on all the buses broken out by borough. And I'll give you an example. This would be Manhattan, which will list all the changes that are happening in Manhattan, just giving people a heads up actually on the bus to make sure they take a look at what's actually happening. On those routes that are having significant restructurings, there will also be a separate poster that gives them a map so they can take a quick look as to what's actually happening on those particular routes. In addition, we will be distributing a brochure, again by borough, that will again list all the all the bus changes that are happening for the borough. It will also include information on what's happening on the bus routes, the V and the W, just because we feel it's better for everyone to have just one brochure for their borough that will just sort of give them a complete overview of what's happening. It does drive people to the website, for more information, as well as if people need it in a different language other than English.
Next. On the buses themselves, we have bus destination signs on the front of buses. Those, in many cases, needed to be changed. We have new route destinations, new numbers, new streets of operation. Those have all been programmed and will be uploaded in effect on June 27th. We are producing audio announcements to be broadcast to both buses and subway stations periodically when we get into June to tell people, in mid-June, to tell people, again, to go to the website, to go to the other information about the changes. And as I mentioned before, we'll have all the bus information in all of our subway stations as well. Next. And lastly, we have bus maps and route-specific timetables. Margaret and her folks are preparing those as well. And those will all be available at least on the web prior to implementation. We're working and looking at a way to make it available earlier than June 27th, so if you want to see what it will look like, you'll be able to do that while still getting access to the current system up until that point. And then the target is to have the printed maps.
The printed maps will be on buses at least 2 weeks prior to the service changes.
And the website will change formally on June 27th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just real quickly, I don't know if anyone noticed, there's 2 buses outside. One is an old bus, part of our museum fleet. If you would take a look at it, it's been beautifully restored. We do use these buses in service around holidays. The one outside is from 1958, I believe. And the other bus outside is a new bus that people like to fall off the front of the bus, that first step. And that bus, what we've done to save money, Henry Sullivan, the Chief Maintenance Officer. Henry, just real quick, what have we done with the paint scheme on that bus?
Good morning, everyone. We've worked with the OEMs, the bus builders, and we've changed the process of painting the bus. We used to paint them white, blue, and black. Now the bus is just painted all white, and you have a black vinyl stripe and a blue vinyl stripe. We've done that on this bus build. We've cut it in on the end of the order, and the new 90 Arctics in the Bronx all have the same process where the bus is only painted white. And we're in the process of doing it with our in-house forces, and everything going forward will just be painted white. We save money with the paint materials. We no longer need the blue or the black paint, and we save labor on the masking process. So looking for some good savings there.
It's a great thing to do, too. So.
Okay. Also, I didn't mention, when we were talking about the accidents, the employee and worker accidents, that there's an increased amount of time off for workers due to spitting incidents. And I'd like, we discussed this briefly before the meeting on what our thoughts are. Sometimes a worker takes 6 months off because of a spitting incident, and I don't envy anyone that gets spit on, believe me. But sometimes you wonder if unless it's a more physical of an assault, you wonder if they can just shower off, go home, shower off, take a nap, and take the rest of the day off, maybe the next day off. But when it gets strung out for months, you start to wonder. So I'd like to have more information about that tomorrow. Okay.
That's not rampant. Is that a few?
I know your wheels are turning. You're trying to think.
Is that a few employees, or is this a rampant practice?
I don't know. How many, Steve?
It's a lot.
51 people have gone out
Significant.
for spat upon.
Oh, boy.
And what's the average? Do we know the average lost time for? 64 days.
Let me ask you a reverse question. Well, we don't. What's the offense for assaulting or for spatting on a bus driver? I asked both questions. I understand.
Vinny DiMarino was he?
I'm Vincent DiMarino. I'm the head of security for New York City Transit, and I also help out with the MTA bus. I could take what could be a very long answer, and I'll make it a very short answer. In order for us to address issues, we really need to know what the story is, regardless of what we're talking about, oil or assaults. What had happened here, prior to the horrific homicide of the bus operator, in early 2008, sometimes the press would report X number of employees are assaulted. System safety would say X number of employees are assaulted. The union would say X number of employees are assaulted. And the police department would say X number of employees are assaulted. Unfortunately, none of those numbers came anywhere near each other. So in order for you and the president of the Transit Authority and Joe Smith to have an accurate picture of exactly how many people are being assaulted, in security we started an assault on employee program. One, to make sure that these are reduced. That's really the number one goal, to make sure that our employees are not assaulted, and more importantly, to ensure that when they are assaulted, we do everything we can to work with the police to make sure that those persons are arrested. And once they're arrested, we work with all the 5 district attorney's offices to ensure once they're arrested, they're charged to the fullest extent of the law, and most often a felony. And then we make that very clear through the press that if you hurt one of our employees, you will be arrested and you will go to jail. Because not only is it an assault of an employee, but in cases like we had last week, a person is operating a bus with 30, 40, 50 people on it. That person could lose control of that bus, or if they're operating a train, and then obviously injure many, many people who are on or outside that bus. So there are many issues here. To make a very long story short, the NYPD, the New York State penal law offense of assault, is defined very differently than the broad category that we often use here when we say someone was assaulted. In fact, if someone is spit upon, if there is no injury, in the New York State penal law, that is not an assault. So there's two separate issues here. Obviously, we want people to report to us. We want our employees to report to us whenever something happens so that we can take appropriate action, which might include letting the police know so that they can, try to make an arrest. But I guess the secondary issue, which I have nothing to do with, so I have no right to comment on, is, as the chair mentions, what would be appropriate. In many cases, there's no witness. It's at a bus at the end of the line. So there's no independent witness to say, in fact, to corroborate that the person was even, I'm not saying that that it's not, but it's only the operator saying they were spat upon. There's no independent witness. There's no other person to, and then the person takes a long, many days off from work. So there are a lot of issues here that have to be that are at play that have to be looked at, and we're working on that. And the conversations came up about how to make a bus operator. One thing I did learn here, it's probably one of the most dangerous jobs. People do attack verbally, aggressively every day our bus operators, and we're doing everything we can to make their job as safe and secure as possible because, again, then it impacts the passengers. But we want to make sure we have accurate reporting, that when people do claim an injury, that we investigate that to make sure are they, in fact, injured, and then, how quick can we get them back to work.
When it comes to employee lost time for spat upon instance, we expect you to have higher expectorations.